Hello everybody, I'm Tyler Grigar, and today I'm going to be talking about my final project for my Microsoft Office class. Now, I'm going to start off with Access, out of the 4 programs I will be covering today. Not much has changed since my original upload. Really the only thing that's been added has been this custom query to display the purchased items and their names, so I can easily access this portion later for my Excel project. Now, but I will go over my other custom tables and whatnot to explain my thinking behind them when I first started building this. So, for my tables, I wanted to have a place to store employees, which would be right here, to just kind of have a spot so I can say who works for me and figure out who was working when an order was made. I also have a place for their phone numbers so I can contact them in case of emergency or any other situation that might require it. As for my custom queries, I have a the thing for the purchased items and their names. I also have a employee evaluation query that takes information from one of my forms that the employee entered about the transaction that they had with a customer. This is so I can figure out whether the cause of a problem is an employee or the customer itself. That way I can figure out if the customer needs to be let go or the employee needs to be replaced. As for my custom forms, I needed a way to add and edit employees. So there's that. I have a place for their first name, their last name, their hire date, and of course a place to add their phone numbers, which updates the customer or the employee phone number record. And then for my reports, I wanted to have a place to print out employee phone numbers and put it up in like a break room or something, just in case there's an emergency or somebody needs to change shifts with somebody else or somebody's missing and whatnot. And now I'm going to move on to Microsoft Word. And for some reason, my comments with my sources keeps making my lighthouse disappear into the background, which it was not having that error beforehand. But whenever I first open the file, it does it. Anyway, for my Word flyer, the images I chose were the lighthouse, which you can see here, so I can create a sort of logo that will eventually tie into my PowerPoint that I make later in this presentation. And I also wanted this dog so it'd be kind of like talking and telling everybody that there's a sale going on. As for the color scheme, I wanted to try to have beach colors. So I picked this dark blue, which kind of can either remind you of the sky or the water. I also have this sort of yellow color that's as close to sand color that I could get with Microsoft's limited color sliding choices. I also picked this gray because it's not always sunny at the beach, and sometimes you get those gray days, and I feel like this color accurately represents it while also not having a white background behind it. The blue also, for the word bubble, also ties in with the blue up here, which gives it a nice bit of symmetry. As for my fonts, I really don't like to have a lot of different fonts on things like this because I feel like it distracts too much from the very core of what you're trying to do. I feel like a very minimalist approach is the way to do it. Hence the reason I don't have a lot of text and a lot of things to distract people from other things. It's just simple and to the point. It's the lighthouse dog training place, and they're having a sale because they have a little store and the little dog's telling everybody that there's a 10% discount on October the 23rd and whatnot. And I did get a little bit crazy with the font by adding the white around the black letters, which I feel makes it pop up against any color. And now moving on, the shapes that I chose to combine square shapes, well, rectangles, which are here, 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 and down here. And I feel like that ties them together. And for some reason this keeps disappearing. I think it's the comments. Here, if I go up to review, simple markup, no markup, that problem stops happening. Alright, so, getting back to it, I also made these circular logo designs to sort of represent portholes. I put a black outline around them to really make them pop, and I also added a bit of shadow inside to give them a little bit of depth. I did the same down here to tie both of these shapes together, and so they're kind of cool and neat together and combined on the thing. And now moving on, the text that I wrote, it's just simple, to the point. I do have this little crazy sale thing over here where it's all like sideways, to be like, just, I wanted to go wild with it. And for the colors of the fonts, I have already explained why I have the white background, but I chose white here because black just didn't look right against that dark colored blue, so I felt white would be a lot easier and crisper to read. And as for the data that I tied back into Excel, or I'm sorry, not Excel, Microsoft Access, if you go up into mailings and go here, you can change it to different addresses, because I figured this could be printed out on a flyer, or with a little bit of tweaking it could be put on a postcard, and then it could be individualized to an extent for each person, or delivered to each person's door. And now moving on, I believe next we have Excel, everybody's favorite program. So in this one it's just kind of very simple. As for my advanced functions, I used COUNTIF here because I wanted to know every time somebody purchased 5 or more items, and then below it I wanted to know how many times somebody purchased 4 or less items per transaction. So as you can see, most of the time people bought less than 5 items. This allows me to tell my employees that, hey, you need to try to sell more than 5 items per transaction so we can get more revenue that comes in. And then for the data that and this is the data that I collected from Microsoft Access. And I used it to, one more advanced function. I also did a cross worksheet function to go into cash flow and take this value and put it out here. So that way, if this value data gets changed in Microsoft Access, it will update the pivot table and then come back here. And rather than having a reference that just references this, it references an actual number that's hardwired into the program. As for the pivot tables I chose, I wanted to display what items were sold, how much they've sold for, like total profits earned from said item, and I also wanted to just have the quantity of the items sold. This allows me to see just how much revenue I'm making off of each item. So as you can see, 34% of my revenue is coming from Raccoon Chew Toys. So clearly they're the big hot seller, and I should try to stock up on as much of those as possible. As for the worksheets I chose, I wanted to have a place for a item sold, and I wanted to have a place for cash flow. I've already explained why I wanted to import the Microsoft Office data, Access data, and as for format, I made sure to have white backgrounds behind all of these data sheets, so they looked very clean and professional when you go look at them for the first time. At least on my screen, I'm sure people with bigger screens would have a different perspective, but I feel it looks good. clean and crisp and gives you everything you need. And now I shall move on to PowerPoint, which is honestly my favorite program to work with. So as you can see down here, I have the sources, so I'm not plagiarizing anything. And I have this slide come up as white because it's just something I like to do whenever I make a PowerPoint. As for this one, I put the Lighthouse dog training, the Tyler, my name, and the logo that I created for this slide and was also on the word sheet. In the rule of thirds slots, I also tried to incorporate a lot of white space to draw your attention directly to those things. And moving on. I'm going to just skip that animation because I'm starting to run low on time. But this is my linked spreadsheet that links back into the Excel sheet. Here we have the dog, which catching a frisbee, which it has a very nice line from the top frisbee down to the bottom frisbee, so from here to here. I'm sure you saw the motion animation of the Ultra Dizzle. So disc, this isn't a typo of disc, it's Ultra Dizzle, which is a frisbee. I also have the logo down here in the corner. Let me just move this real quick so you can see it better. Which is down over here, which ties into the earlier animations. And sorry, I'm rushing this, but I'm starting to run out of time. I also have this cute dog here, the bouncy ball animations, and this is displaying the products that are sold and the number that they're selling with. So like this, balls are the 8th% highest earner for my business. Next we have dog food, and this was the 17th highest earner. I feel there's a lot of depth in this picture because you have this very nice, clean, crisp dog bowl up here, and then it kind of blurs out in the back, which gives it a real nice, depthy feel. Next we have collars and leashes, which were the 24th% highest seller when you combine all of the different types of leashes and collars together. I incorporated a lot of white space in this one because I had a hard time trying to figure out the best way to implement the images and follow the rule of thirds and not make the image look too busy at the same time. So I sort of created a triangle which links the collar to the bubble, which ties back into the other bubbles, and then down to the other collar and leash, which I feel gives it a nice feel. And then the final slide. I used a lot of white space in this one, and then I used motion for the raccoon. There's also a little bit of depth because if you watch, the raccoon goes over the top of the label, which kind of makes it feel like it's something that just came in and run over the screen, which I feel like is a nice touch. And I believe that is all. Well, thank you for watching my presentation. I'm sorry that this ran a little bit over 10 minutes, but it takes as long as it takes. And I hope you all have a great winter break. Thanks. Bye.